So I fear that we are losing our comparative advantage. Why is it that lawyers, for instance, because had this thing been pushed, Kaplan and Stratton, which was my farm, I did my pupillage under Amos Wako. He never grows old, this man. He was my pupil master. We used to say, catch them and scratch them, Kaplan and Stratton. And then Hamilton, Harrison, and Matthews. Those are the two main law firms. And of course, Kaplan and Stratton used to say Hamilton, Harrison, Matthews were hopeless, helpless, and matata. These were Wazungu law firms. Wazungu law firms. Do you know that even with this integration, the right of establishment, a law firm in Kenya cannot set up a practice in Dar es Salaam. And that was the intention. A law firm in Dar es Salaam cannot set up a law firm in Uganda. What are we waiting for? And we are talking about integration, we cannot get those things. But if we got the East African Assembly and the Court of Justice, East African Court of Justice, and everybody working as hard as they should, and this is why, personally, I wanted to never to think of trying to remove the headquarters of the community from Arusha. Because Arusha is just 3.5 hours from Nairobi. Mwingi's father, by the way. And it's a very interesting place. Because the moment you touch that, Tanzanians begin to say, look at the Kenyans again. So we need to build confidence at every level. And if our comparative advantage is in strengthening the community in accordance with your report, then we need practical measures. I think that corruption has been talked about heavily. Corruption. We have all the legal frameworks out there. We even, through the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, try to legislate how we can live peaceably with each other. In other words, now competition for leadership of this country is ethnic based. It is our turn to eat. and that's it, our turn. And if they play around, unasema wapende wasipende. Now we need really to say, and look at what the Holy Quran says in the Bible. I know the Bible actually, if we ought to live what we believe, some of us, that if you live peaceably with each other, as much as lieth in you, I'm coming to the structure, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all persons. Kenyans live peaceably with their tribesmen and tribespeople. And this is where the problem is. And because of it, corruption in politics. We agree with you that the IEBC needs to be restructured and that we bring on board men and women who will not sell for a song the birthrights of the Kenyan people. If they are nominated by political parties, that will be most welcome. And therefore, and I think this should be done this year because we want to clear 2 years before the next election. Before 2022, the commission should be in place so that they are not seen to be, and you need to look at the Kriegler report in this regard, and you see you stand well guided. Therefore, because of this competition in politics, which is ethnic based, and this is where Kenyans got wrong and Tanzanians got it right. Mwalimu Nyerere went out of his way to make sure that Tanzanians were first and foremost Tanzanian, and secondly, belong to over 100 of their tribal formations. Here we are 43. We glorify the tribe, and this is our undoing. However, all is not lost. I think we can do something. So that inclusivity in government is really what is important. I remember Mzee Moi used to say, ataweka kiraka kiraka. Actually, he was very inclusive. He was very inclusive. Yeah, and he used to do that with a lot of ease. So, we recommend as Wiper Democratic Movement that the structure of government, and this has been spoken about, I recall that our party went on a retreat and some people came and accused me of saying we were recommending for removal of the presidential term limit, that I wanted President Uhuru to continue in perpetuity. Now, they didn't actually get the point we are driving at, and this is the point. The point is that you have a president who is the head of government, commander-in-chief of the armed forces. We are in complete agreement with your proposal. And a deputy president who should deputize the president. But we think in terms of inclusivity in order to expand this, and we need to, as Kenyans, be honest with ourselves and really call a spade a spade. We will need to expand that space by having the office of the premier, and we recommend 2 deputy premiers. Now, the Prime Minister would ordinarily nominate his deputies and then take this to the appointing authority is always the President. The President would appoint the 2 deputy premiers, the Premier and the Deputy Premier. We also don't want to make it easy for the President to fire the Prime Minister. I said, I addressed this matter at Bomas, Mr. Chair, if you remember, because that time I had not looked at the detailed report, and now I see that it's like whoever is Prime Minister must be punished. First of all, he doesn't even earn any allowances. He's a member of Parliament like every other member of Parliament, okay, and no extra allowances, nothing. And even to remove him, impeach him, very easy. Yeah, so why would we want to have a Prime Minister? Why would anybody want to be Prime Minister? And you'll be fired by the President. If you are lucky, you are fired by the Parliament. Therefore, you're recommending that the party that wins the majority seats in Parliament appoints a Prime Minister or nominates a Prime Minister, and that Prime Minister becomes the leader of government business in Parliament. And in both houses, of course, the Senate and the National Assembly, and make it like mandatory 2/3 to remove him. Yeah, 2/3, because this I don't know whether the Commission was trying to bring inclusivity by suggesting that when the President appoints a Prime Minister and is rejected in round 1, he goes to bring another one and is rejected. Actually, your wording is that process continues until there's a Prime Minister in place. It can cause instability in the country, in my view. So let us make it easy that whoever is a Prime Minister is given some powers. And I don't think it's contradictory in the sense that the President will be the head of state and head of government, the Commander-in-Chief of the Defense Forces. There's no dispute over that. He chairs cabinet, and of course, the Prime Minister also now be allowed to chair some committees of Parliament. I think what we are looking at here, and we, as NASA Coalition, we actually made this presentation. It's a public document within the framework of the Political Parties Act. The Register of Political Parties has our recommendations. So and I know that you're probably looking at, okay, these are 5 positions. What do other communities get? Yeah, if 2 big communities or 5 communities get together, how I pray that, and I'll be a very proud Kenyan if we can actually approach the next election without the community. Look at political party ideology, look at what the manifesto is, detribalize this country in real terms. Because your job was only to try and help both President Uhuru and Raila Odinga to detribalize this country. I'm not quite sure whether you have succeeded. Therefore, I want to ask that you think a bit more, Mr. Chair, on that issue. And I know you brought out the ethos there and whatever. That chapter on ethos, we will address you separately. I told you that the bit on revenue allocation, we are going to redraft that chapter as a party because some of our members feel very strongly about some of those chapters. So the report on revenue allocation will be revisited, but we stand by everything else that we have presented before you this morning. So I think I've talked around about, but I think I've addressed the issues. Some of them, the 9 points that you are asked to deal with, yeah, the 9 points, yeah, you've tried. You have tried. but we would want to see a situation